Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the No More Perfect podcast. And it's been a while since you've had an episode from Mark and me.
It sure has.
It's been a long time.
I know. I think a big part of it was it just took us it took me quite a while to recover from all our travels.
It was a little crazy there for a while. And
Yeah.
we were at our son Evan's in Australia over at Christmas holiday. And then we were home in January. But
were we?
we were home in January, but we did a lot of intensives in January.
Yeah.
We did 4 intensives in January. And usually the max that we do is 3. But because we couldn't do any intensives in February,
right,
we kind of front loaded them in January. And so that was a big month. And then we were in Uganda for about 2 weeks in February. And then we came back and we spoke in Texas and we were jet lagged and it just seemed like it was a lot. And so finally we're getting back to our rhythm and looking forward to bringing some more episodes where we just share with you things from our marriage, things from addressing topics that we see that come up in our marriage coaching and our intensives. And so that's kind of what we want to do today. But it seems like we have been dealing with a lot of issues with anger.
Are you talking about me right now?
No, not at all.
Oh. The way you said that, I was like, is there something I should know?
Actually, you did have a bad day over the weekend, but
yeah,
that was a rarity.
Yeah, the weekend was hard.
In
coaching, but anger is a normal part of life. What we do with it is so important,
right?
Because anger, in some ways, has an important place. It's to protect us. It's to guard. It empowers us. But most often, anger is misused.
Right.
And I definitely have a history of misusing anger.
Yeah. And you're not alone in that. I mean, we see that with a lot of the people that we work with.
Right.
That either one or both struggle with anger. And honestly, it can be the woman, it can be the man.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
No.
It can be either party.
It could be both parties. I mean,
right.
And I think there's so much happening in culture, in our lives. There's anxiety and chaos and all of this that can easily, and busyness that can easily keep us stirred up to the point of our reactions leading quickly to an angry outburst.
Right. Yeah. In fact, one of the things that when we're talking with somebody who struggles with anger, and particularly because there's really 2 ways that we can become emotionally dysregulated with anger. One way is that we shut down and we shut out. And that might be a quiet, stewing type of an anger, even a punishing type of an anger. Or we might actually explode, get angry, and both of those are emotionally dysregulated.
Right.
Because when we're regulated in our anger, we are working to understand what's going on inside of us, and we're using our words to have some conversation, and we're trying to help our partner understand that where we either got hurt or frustrated. But oftentimes, because we become dysregulated in expressing the anger, it becomes a place of really that a lot of damage
Yeah,
can be done.
totally.
And before we kind of go on to dig into this just a little bit more, I think what is important is also to recognize that if we don't attend to anger in our relationship, then we're going to lose safety
Mm-hmm.
in the relationships that mean the most to us.
Right. Right.
Because when there is consistent, repetitive anger, it takes away emotional safety.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about that at first, a lot of times people will be like, well, I'm safe. I mean, I would never do anything to hurt my partner. And yet you're hurting your partner when you yell at them, scream at them, shut down. So not all hurt happens physically.
I think too that
emotionally.
Right. And, I think we're at a great place to talk about maybe what are the triggers that creates that environment of lack of safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's insecurity, walking on eggshells, and sometimes that's a verbal expression or a physical aggressive expression. Sometimes it's just you're ticked off and everybody else knows it, but you're not saying a word.
Right.
You're being maybe short in your word responses. You're interrupting if somebody tries to talk to you. You have the scowl on your face. Maybe even your physical reactions are a bit short and aggressive, like they're pointed, like you're trying to make a point, but you're not using your words to express that point.
Or you're using really harsh words to express that point.
Yeah.
And I mean, anger has its purpose. And probably one of the best books on anger that you and I often recommend to people is Dr. Gary Chapman has a book on anger.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure and put a link to that in the show notes.
I like it because it's simple. It's very practical.
It's also short.
Yes.
And small.
And it's pointed. And there was a book I used to recommend, but it was deep. It was powerful, but you had to want to dig through it. And many times, people don't want to take the time, especially men, don't want to take the time to really dig in. Mm-hmm. So Gary's book is excellent.
Yeah. And I can't remember the exact title. I didn't pull it out before we started this. But like I said, we'll put it in the show notes. But his book, one of the things that's really good about it is he talks about why we were given the emotion of anger.
Mm-hmm.
Because it causes, anger is what is the alarm that when there is, for us to raise up against something that is wrong.
Yeah. Or the appearance of wrong.
Right. Like the right, like it's a righteous anger.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're designed for that to move us into action.
Oh, right. I see where you were going with that. Yeah, definitely. And so there's the positive side of it that definitely we don't want to eliminate or ignore. And you look at God's, how God responded. He was righteous in his anger. Mm-hmm. And, but many times we try to say our anger is righteous, but really it's selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And
right, it's only righteous when it is something that grieves God.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it was designed for, is when it would grieve God. And we often use it for a lot more than that. We use it to get our way. We use it to manipulate. And sometimes we don't even realize we do especially if we grew up in a home that had a lot of anger,
Right.
because that's normal to us.
Right. And really, that was the home I grew up in. Anger was expressed all the time. And really, that was a pattern I learned. You don't talk about it. You just get angry and then you get violent. And
Mhm. Mhm.
that I had to really work through that to change the trajectory of our relationship and my handling of those things that earlier you were mentioning. We do it because we manipulate, we try to get our way. All of it boils down to our wanting and desire to control.
Mhm.
And uh, and so it kind of doesn't matter whether it's manipulation or passivity or whatever. What's the heart of the expression of anger? It's
Often to control.
I'm out of control, or
Mhm.
the situation's out of
And so
control.
I want to bring it back in control.
Yeah.
But we don't realize that that is a very ineffective way
Yeah.
to do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, so that sense of control. And so part of my challenge was I would just store hurts, and then thinking that I was letting them go. But as we say, I was just hoarding my hurts, and they were pooling, and then boom, the atomic bomb would go off. And
Well, and one of the ways that we sometimes describe it is like an instant pot or a
Mhm.
pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And if you have an instant pot, you might know that you put the top on and it locks, and then the pressure starts to build up.
Mhm.
And eventually, if that's what happens with us, especially with anxiety and stress, is like there's this pressure that builds up. And if we don't learn how to open the vent with
Mhm.
our pressure, that eventually we blow the top off the instant pot from an emotional perspective.
Mm.
And so, what we want to eventually learn how to, and this is what I saw you start to learn how to do when you were really trying to address this, is you started to open up the vent
Mhm.
and earlier, so you wouldn't get to like an explosion
Right.
point.
Right.
You started to open that up. And
Yeah.
when you would open that up, what would happen is then you would bring down the pressure.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that made a huge difference because you were addressing things when they were smaller rather than letting them build up
Mhm.
and eventually get to a place of blowing.
Right.
Yeah.
I
You also used the word violent just a few minutes ago, and I want to clarify. You were never violent uh, with me or the kids, but you would. There was a season where there were holes punched in walls. There was furniture.
I guess I see that as violent. I never was
It was scary for those
right.
around. There's
Yeah.
no doubt. But I just want to. Some people hear one word and they can like put a meaning to
Yeah.
it. I want to clarify that because I don't want somebody stuck on that. But yes, I would agree.
Mhm.
That's scary. And it certainly it was not creating safety
Right.
in our
Right.
home.
Well, and so what I began to do was I really became convicted of my inability to control myself, and that my angry outbursts were not appropriate. They were not right. And ultimately, I chose to identify them as sin,
Mhm.
that I was sinning against my family, against my Lord, and I needed his help to change it. And that really began to change things because I was, instead of pacifying
Mhm.
my anger or pretending it wasn't really that bad,
Yeah.
I began to really work to identify how bad it really was. And
Yeah. You stopped minimizing it.
yeah.
And I think the other thing, and you did this for a while, but I see people do it all the time, is they will say, well, if she would just do this, I wouldn't have to get angry.
Right.
Or if he would just do this, I wouldn't have to. So, and you did that for a while. Like, if the kids would just behave, then I wouldn't have to, whatever. And it was like, when we really own our anger, we realize nobody makes us angry.
Right.
Nobody makes us angry. We make us angry.
Yeah.
It's how we are responding to sometimes hard things, unfortunate things, difficult things happening in a relationship.
Right. Well, and I think as I've aged, I know I still look 30, but
I know you definitely do.
As I've aged, I've really taken seriously how Jesus responded to hard things, how he responded to hard, callous, irritable, mean people. And he stayed steady. And I'm like, I want to be like that. I want to be that guy. And so I think I began to identify a process that I think will be helpful. And the first thing I did was started looking at the event when it happened rather than ignoring it. So maybe the kids, something happened with them, and I started to elevate. So there was the event. How would I interpret it? Well, most often when you're trying to control, our interpretation is that they are doing something to me on purpose, whoever that is.
Well, and that was a big challenge for you because you always took everything personally.
Yeah.
And so definitely looking at and going, I'm telling myself this story. Is it a true story?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's cool, what you just said, because so often we interpret and then we assume, so we assign a meaning to our story, and we're believing our story because it's our story, so it's got to be true. And then we start acting on that story as if it's true. And so they're doing this on purpose. They're trying to hurt me. They're against me. And then I react, or whoever reacts.
Yeah.
And that's not, that is not a healthy response.
Yeah. And one of the things that you also started to do, particularly like with me, is let's say I said something and it felt very harsh to you, or it kind of triggered you. And in the past, you would just let that slide, which we both know it wasn't sliding. As you just said a few minutes ago, it was pooling. And you started to address those in very kind ways. Like, hey, Jill, do you think that you could say that? Do you think you could try to say that again in a way that my heart could receive it better? I remember that was a phrase you would use. Or you would say, that sounded really harsh to me. Is there something that we need to talk about? And so that's while it was small, right? And sometimes, I had things going on that I didn't realize. So my anger was leaking out in ways. And sometimes, no, maybe I was just tired and I was a little careless with the way I said something. So all I had to do was reassure you, no, there's nothing,
Right. Well, we talk through it.
We would talk through it.
Yep. And that's the right way to do it.
It is. I mean, what I found is, and you began, so the interesting thing was you were addressing more things in our relationship, or we were talking about them, which felt a little odd because you had been a man that didn't talk about those things very much. So it felt like you were kind of increasing communication, and it could even feel like increasing conflict. But because I also knew what you were working on, And what we found is if we just had those little conversations, we weren't having the big conflicts.
Right. I think that going back to what you said earlier, when someone says, let it slide, I think that that's an important step that gets mishandled.
Okay.
They let it slide, but they let it slide with negative thoughts.
Oh, because then it stays in their heart, and then when it's pooling, it becomes bitterness and resentment.
Right. And so as long as you're letting it slide with the God tool of grace, but also a positive message that says, I know that I'm just going to use you as an example, but I know Jill is tired right now, or I know that Jill has a lot on her plate, and I know that's not characteristic of her the way she just talked to me.
Yeah.
Rather than it being a negative thought that fuels me to bitterness, with grace, I can handle that in a Jesus way.
Yes. But what I want to make sure that we clarify is you can do that over and over and over again, and that can be unhealthy.
Right. Yep.
So the difference is when you just said the words, and I want to make sure, when the person is not characterized by maybe a harsh comment, a little bit of energy in their voice, when they're not characterized by that, we can easily offer grace. When they're characterized by that, that's when we need to be having conversations,
right,
talking about it.
Right.
And that's really important to understand because that can be confusing. So
yeah. And it's like we don't have to stay silent. We can have the conversation. And if it's repetitive, we should have the conversation, but
because
early.
Then it's becoming unsafe.
Right.
A difficult moment here and there does not create unsafety in a relationship.
Right.
Consistent worrying about someone's anger, their mood, worrying about their mood, all of those things, that when it's consistent, and I would say that was what we ran into early in our marriage with you and with the couples that we're working with, is when one or both partners it create an environment that makes you feel like you have to walk on eggshells.
Right. Totally.
You just don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
And you grew up in that environment.
Right.
I did not. I never had to worry about my mom or my dad being angry.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I grew up in a very, very safe, emotionally safe environment. And so I didn't see a lot of anger. My tendency is, if I'm going to get angry and misuse anger, when my tendency as a former avoider is to more often shut down, not explode.
Right.
But to shut down and get quiet. So I have to guard against that and make sure that I'm having conversations when my tendency is to want to pull away and to avoid.
Right. So we talked about the event. So going back early, looking at the event, thinking through how we're interpreting that event.
And really, if our interpretation is true.
Right.
Now, sometimes people have trouble thinking outside of their own interpretation.
Oh, right on. Yep.
Because this is one reason why, honestly, counseling, coaching can be helpful, because we do a lot of this when we're working with somebody and they're riled up about something and they're just like, in their mind, this is what happened and this is why it happened. When in reality, it could be that there are 10 other reasons why it happened.
Right.
And they can't think of anything outside of their one reason.
Yep. Well, and I think for this couple that actually numerous couples we worked with recently, but even for myself, that when you're ruminating on the negative thoughts about your spouse, man, it's just you really began to so partner with those negative thoughts that you believe them to be true, whether they are or not, and we lose that ability to see the good. And so when they do act in a way that our response is, or our interpretation is a negative one, sometimes we feel valid. Sometimes we feel like, yeah, once again, you're just acting the way you always do. But so often that happens in our head,
And that's because we have highways in our brain. And when we travel those highways over and over again, they become like a rut, and we lose the ability to actually be able to broaden our thinking. And that's why we also work so much with people on their thinking, because, we can either have thoughts that will lead us. I mean, Romans 8:5-6 says there are thoughts of the flesh that will lead us to death, and there are thoughts of the spirit that will lead us to life and peace.
Yep.
And so we need to understand how important our thinking is and make sure that our thoughts are not of the flesh. That's when the enemy wants to whisper lies, but are of the spirit. Like sometimes I remember when I would get really frustrated with you in the past. And I still get frustrated with you, but I can remember.
Isn't that a part of the journey?
It is a part of the journey, but I remember when I was starting to really deal with it, and I was like, I would have to make myself go, what does God say about Mark? He's a child of the King. He's loved. He's valuable. He was fearfully and wonderfully made. He's smart. Like those are things that I would have to really work hard at believing, because they are true. They're true about what God says about you, about how God made you. But man, they were way outside the realm of what I wanted to think.
Right.
In that moment.
Yeah. I think what you've identified is that it is important that we manage our thoughts, that we take our thoughts captive. And part of that process, especially for many who don't know, like they have trouble thinking outside of their own negative thoughts, to become curious, ask your spouse questions, or the person. Like, man, the story I'm telling myself right now is that you are really believing that I'm a fool or I'm incompetent, or that you're, whatever the thought is, ask. And I tell you, most often, that's not the thought that our spouse has or the other person. But then we have to believe them. Because if we're so wrapped up in our negative thought, we have trouble believing that they're telling us the truth.
Right.
But if we really want to change, we have to start being decided about taking our thoughts captive and choosing to align with a different thought and a different truth. But as we're interpreting, emotions will raise up. And we've learned a great deal about emotions.
Right. Like we like to think of emotions. They're like the lights on the dashboard of a car. And the lights on the dashboard of the car will say, check engine, get fuel. They come on. And when our emotions come on, they all kind of have the same message. And that is talk to Jesus. Talk to Jesus. Figure out what's going on inside of you with him. See, we often think, the minute emotion raises up, I need to talk to the other person.
Right. I need to tell them what I think. I need to give them a piece of my mind. It gets all worried. It gets.
And then we are not, that's when we're in the flesh.
Right. And
we are
I'm
not
thinking,
in a good place.
It's not safe. It's not.
No, it's not safe at all.
Right.
When we lash out, it's not safe.
Right.
We just created an unsafe environment.
Yeah.
And so we want to go, hey, our emotions are God given. They are designed to take us to Jesus
Yep.
and work through it, help, as we sort through it. And what we find is, about half the time you take it to the Lord and you work through it in your own heart and you go, okay, I don't need to have any other conversations. But about half the time you realize, do need to have another conversation.
Right.
I need to talk to this person about this, but I need to do it in a God honoring, spirit led way.
Right.
That's the key. So the pause when our emotions raise up, the pause that we use to take it and talk to the Lord about it and let Him help us sort through it is extremely important. And most of the time, when anger is misused, there is no pause.
Right. Right. And and so as we look at the event, we really weigh in and think through our interpretation, and we recognize that those emotions are leading us to make a request. That's going to lead us to a healthy reaction or a healthy response that's not explosive or aggressive.
Right.
And that's really what will transform our families.
Well, and then you said the word, it leads us to a healthy response versus an unhealthy reaction.
Yeah. Yes.
So we really have to slow things down. And I think that especially when you have a lot of recurring anger inside of you, the other thing that can be really helpful is to dig into where that anger comes from. Like you may have some people get really riled up when when anything appears to be unfair.
Oh, sure.
Right.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you get really riled up when anything appears to be disrespectful. And so digging into why disrespect or unfairness or whatever the trigger is for you is so important, and why that it just causes you to react that way. Usually it precedes any relationship that you're in now. Like oftentimes we can go back to childhood. We can go back to situations that happened where maybe we made a vow, like I will never let anyone disrespect me like that person did. And when we do that, we don't even realize that we have almost this like software playing in the back of our mind. And then our spouse almost like, it's almost like an IED, that, you accidentally step on and then it explodes.
Boom. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That our spouse doesn't even know that it exists until they step on it.
And then they don't even understand why.
What happened.
Yeah.
Because usually it really didn't have to do with whatever the explosion happened about.
Yeah.
It was this underlying, the message of shame. There's something wrong with me. In fact, that's one of the things we do know is that rage is actually burst shame.
Yeah.
It's when shame, which shame is when we say in our head negative messages about ourselves.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me.
I'm defective. Yeah.
I'm not enough. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And so when somebody comes along and does something that kind of like pricks one of those messages, even if they didn't intend to do that, but we have a really, like we almost have an open wound and they just accidentally touched that open wound. And then, so that's the places where some coaching, some counseling can really help us to dig in and to understand what is our trigger, what's our belief, what's fueling that anger that maybe we're not even aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, as we're talking, there are just so many facets of this that can be overwhelming. And yet, God really does give us a clear path to really take our thoughts captive, to recognize our emotions and be attentive, and then to, with His help, have a healthy response.
Yeah.
And I just think of how common anger and angry outbursts are to the people we work with, and they just represent the people outside of who we work with.
Right. Most of us struggle with it in some way, shape, or form. And if anger isn't our struggle, it's very possible it's very likely that we have people in our lives and we're dealing with their anger.
Yeah. Something I wanted to loop back to that when you were talking earlier, another way we justify our anger is, hey, this is the way I am. You should just accept me. And that's a cop out. That is not our job. Isn't our calling in our life is not to live in that unhealthy state. Our calling is to resemble Christ and to become that healthy person in Christ. And so, don't take the cop out.
Right.
Take the walk of Christ and walk in a healthy mindset.
Well, and it's just such a reminder, you and I often say, particularly in marriage is 70-30. It's 70% personal growth and 30% couple growth. So I guess it would be safe to say improvement in marriage is 70-30.
Ah, yeah.
70% is personal growth. 30% is couple growth.
Right.
And so it's really, this is a place that we may need some personal growth.
Yeah.
And this is why you and I, if you go to our website and you click on coaching, you'll see coaching, men's coaching and women's coaching. Because you work with men one-on-one and I work with women one-on-one. And a lot of times we are working through the anger. What's the source of the anger? What are our beliefs that are fueling our anger? And we try to help. We do help people get to the heart of that.
Yeah.
Good conversation today.
Yeah.
Important conversation. Do not let anger, especially if you're the one that's bringing it to the table, do not let anger control you, and do not allow it to create a sense of unsafety in the relationships that mean the most to you. That would be with your kids, with your spouse, and honestly, even in your work environment. And so if that is a struggle for you, may this be a reminder, may this be that encouragement, that kick in the seat of the pants to get serious about addressing your anger, taking a look at it, coming to understand it, and getting to a place where it no longer controls you.
Yeah.
And we can truly say that because that is where you've gotten to.
Right.
And that is, it's wonderful to live in a relationship now where we don't have to worry about walking on eggshells. So it's possible.
Yeah, that I agree.
Absolutely. I'll close in prayer.
Okay.
Father, thank you so much for allowing us to explore this topic. I pray, Father, for wisdom, direction for those that are listening. I pray, Father, that they would, that if this resonates with them, that they would be open to digging in and figuring out what's at the source of the anger and beginning to learn some different skills to become more regulated in their anger and to continue to become more secure, become more like Jesus in their life and the way in which they handle themselves. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.